Hey guys, Adam Savage here with another one-day bunker build in my cave. Now, obviously, I love tools. Look around me, I am nothing but existing right now in a palace of tools. But when I wrote a book about making, I mentioned one tool in the title, and that's a hammer, which is sort of like the most proto-tool of proto-tools. I mean, seriously, using a rock to hammer a stick into the ground is probably one of the very first human-making endeavors. In the third season of Mythbusters, I actually made a crew gift that was a hammer for everyone. This is a design based on a steam fitter's hammer that Jamie Heineman had around the shop. I had a case-hardened piece of 2-inch steel bar welded to a knurled handle. I call this the convincer, and when I release my line of tools, this will be the first tool I release. But you don't always need such a big hammer. In fact, when I was a model maker at ILM, I noticed a need for a kind of a small hammer with a little bit of substance to it. So I made one. I took a piece of 1.5-inch aluminum and made a little round head for it and carved a wooden handle for it. And it was a trusty companion in my shop for years. But recently, I had a need for it and I couldn't find it. I've been doing a lot of mill work lately, and in mill work, you clamp stuff into a vise, and when you put your object on the parallels in the mill vise and you're about to tighten the vise, it's a good idea to be tapping on the object so it's setting really hard against the parallels as you're doing it. That just means that all your stuff is really tight. And I was looking for the aluminum Thwacker because every other hammer I had was a little too big or gangly or different, and I wanted that old familiar face, and I couldn't find it. So today I'm going to replace my little Thwacker with a new one. Except instead of aluminum, I'm going to use some brass because it's got a little more weight to it, and I feel like it'll weather a little better. And I got a nice piece of wood, I think, up on the wood rack. So let's get started making a one-day little Thwacker build. All right, I found my piece of wood. This is a piece of koa. I know because I wrote koa on it. I bought this on eBay a few months ago, and I think it'll be an absolutely perfect material for the handle of my Thwacker. I think for brass, I don't have to look very far. I think this right here is actually going to be the perfect thing. Let's see. This is 1.5 inches. Let's see here. This is 1.5 inch diameter. Brass, I'm just going to cut off probably about 2 inches of it to make the head of my Thwacker. And then I'm going to cut a hole in the top. I'm going to machine it as an oblong hole, not a round hole, so the head won't spin on the wooden handle. And then I'm going to carve the interface of the handle and the hammer. I have to make a little wedgy poo that sticks in the top that helps hold the two together. And then I will design the handle itself and carve that out of wood. Seems pretty straightforward. Let's find out what problems we can invent on the way, shall we? I'm looking at this hammer for reference because this is one of the most beautiful hammers I own. Take a look at this thing. It is such a beautiful little, this is definitely a little Thwacker. Yeah. It is gorgeous. I believe this is made for a jeweler. I picked it up on eBay for 20 bucks. I just happened to see that beautiful head. Look at that thing. That is just gorgeous. What a lovely piece. Anyway, I really like the feel of this hammer. And so I'm going to try and kind of replicate that feel. I think I'm going to... Okay. So I think I'm going to go with the same kind of long, thin stalk out to a wider handle. Yeah, let's try that. So I want to cut and yeah, I think I'll cut straight through there. Yeah. All right, I've got my wood blank, I've got my brass blank, and because the shape of the wood handle will depend upon the size of the head, I'm going to machine the brass head first. So, time for some lathe work. I'm using I want to drill a hole in the center of this bar this way and this way. So I'm going to be using a center finder to do it. And this is a piece of equipment, actually, I'll make it a little more visible for you. This is a piece of equipment that is a steel ball mounted to the end of a stalk with a light. And when you bring this thing down and it touches the work, the light goes on. Boom. And that light going on or off tells me within less than 1,000th of an inch where I am on the piece. So I bring this over here. So just as it touches, I zero out. And then I move it by exactly 1/2 of its distance. And given that this is exactly 1.5 inches in diameter, I move exactly 3/4 of an inch to get my center, 0.75. Now I'm going to go to the end and measure that. That's it. Okay. Okay. So that should be my ever-loving dead center on top of this. I'm now set up. There we go. I'm set up right in the center. So back out the center finder and its collet. Let's just make sure that I don't get the center, or if I need it later, I can get it. There we go. All right. Now, I want this to be an oblong hole, and I've got this beautiful long 1/4 inch bit. So I think I'm going to utilize that. Yeah, I think I want to create a kind of a wide hole like that. So I'm going to drill on 2 separate centers, that center and that center. And since that's the middle of my work, I got to do a little math to figure out where I want to go with this. Let's see. Cool, so I move 0.125 in each direction. Okay, now, center drill goes back. We're gonna move 0.125. I'm using a 2-flute collet, which should allow me to go in. Okay, so if I do 0.125, that's no, that's not right. It's half of that. It's 0.0625. Yep, there we go. I was getting my math wrong. Okay, Here we go, slowly pouring. Okay, machinists of Twitter, I know that that is not the most accurate way to bore a hole right through the side of a cylinder. I am not killing myself about accuracy on this, specifically because I'm about to bury a piece of wood all the way in there and use a wedge to hold it in. So I'm being a little more loosey-goosey than I normally would be for such a thing. So I'm recognizing that the long bit for pouring that isn't the best way to get a perfectly straight hole right through the center of a cylinder. I'm going to use my new die filer to actually get this puppy filed up. I'm very excited about that. Oh, oh, really? There we go. All right, got my piece of brass with the hole cut in it. I'm pretty pleased with it. So now I'm going to engineer my piece of koa so it fits in there nice and tight. And then I'm going to carve the handle out of koa. And then I'm going to do the final spit and polish on the head and bring the two together. To the bandsaw. Now I've got a little stock sticking up. It's time to soften the edges and make it match the profile of the inside that I drilled out of the hammerhead. Approach it from the top. I want to approach it from the side. Ooh. But you can't see it there. Here, how about if I did that? There we go. All right. No. Good. I feel good about that. Time to get to some shaping. All right, so here's my little stalk. I know it's not perfectly beautiful, but it's in line with the grain of the wood and should make a nice little koa handle by the time I'm all done. now it's time to sort of assess the shape of this thing. Yeah, like that. So I think here. All right. I think that's the shape. I don't know if you can see that. Let's cut it out. Now this is where we do some belt sanding work. Oh, yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Now I like using light to actually see my contours. It's a good final pass to make sure you don't have any weird angles. To make sure you have the kind of uniform shape you were going for. This is all just the first pass at sanding. Yeah, it's pretty good, pretty good. All right, moving up. Yeah, it's a lot of sanding, but that's kind of the point. Also, I'm using some machine tools and some of my bigger tools, but this is not a project that requires anything refined in terms of equipment. You can make this hammerhead from a piece of metal stock you buy on eBay, and you can cut it with a hacksaw and file it, and it would only take a little bit longer than the way I'm doing it here. This is a terrific project for just sort of really getting into the kind of feel you want out of your stuff. I can feel I am really, really close here. And I'm about to do some staining. I'm about to make this handle nice and dark. That's the next step. I've got some dark, what is this? Dark walnut stain. That's what I wanted to go for. Oh, yeah. Put the stain on and let it sit for a minute, and then we'll wipe it back off, and we'll dry it. Nice. See? Little thwacker. Let's pull this off. Oh, it's beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. Oh, look at that. Such great color. Such great texture. All right. I think it's time to finish the hammerhead on the lathe. I had this idea that I wanted to give angles to these two ends of the head. And I think I really do want to do that. But the question is, how much of an angle? And I think my answer is like 5 degrees. Really not much at all. Well, let's give it, well, that's 4.5. See that? Little thwacker. It's actually why I love these Bondhus T-handled Allen wrenches, because they make effective little hammers. So I'm going to use my cross slide for this angle, and then I'm going to change it to 5 degrees in the other direction and see how I like it. Here we go. Nice. Okay, let's go in the other direction. All right, now it's time to remove the tool marks from either end of this hammer. And final finishing. I'm really pleased with the overall finish. A final finishing on a piece of Scotch-Brite, a Scotch pad here. I want to get that kind of worked in texture. That is a beautiful object. All right. So there's the barrel head of our little Thwacker, 5-degree angles. I know that these two aren't centered according to this, and that's a mistake I made, but you know what? That's something I live with my Thwacker for the rest of my life. Yeah. All right, so now I have the handle, I have the head. Now it's time to join the two together. And to do that, I need to put this in there, pot it with a little bit of glue, and then I need to put a little wedge in there and pop it in. So a wedge is, like, I got to draw, let me get a pen. So I need to take a piece of steel that's about like this, where this distance is 0.25 inches, give or take. And this is maybe, 5/8 of an inch. Down to here. Yes. So this is a piece of steel. That is a piece of steel, and I need to make it about 1/4 inch wide, about 5/8 inch long, and probably, 0.125, like 1/8 of an inch or even less thick. And then I'm going to join these two together, pop that wedge in, and we'll have a little Thwacker. All right, I got a little washer here, which I like, and I'm going to cut a slice out of it. I'm going to cut like a piece like that out of it, and that'll be my wedge. Pop that in there. Bring over my portaband. There it is. All right, where'd the little piece go? Yeah, where'd the little piece go? I cut the piece out of here, and it's not on the ground. Oh. There it is. All right. that's going to end up being my, ow, that's hot. That's going to end up being my wedge for the end of my hammer. Time for assembly. So to not get glue anywhere I don't want glue, I know I should use epoxy to set this, but to be honest, I'm going to use cyanoacrylate, acrylic-based crazy glue is what you would know it as. I'm going to use some crazy glue for this because I'm impatient and I don't want to wait the 7 or 8 minutes. Yep, that's my thing. I'm super impatient. This goes in, yeah, that side. Okay. Oh, great. That is a nice, positive seat. And I forgot to put glue in. These things happen. Ah, now we know they go together and they're hard to get apart, which is good. All right, let's get a little glue in there to fill out the equation. Just to fill all the voids that would otherwise be there. Yep. At the same time. Oh, don't drip on me. Okay, here we go. Ladies and germs, that is a seat. And I'm letting the glue sort of settle in there. I'm going to peel some off here. Okay, and we'll get the tape off. Make sure that any glue that's sitting there is not slowly gluing the tape to the wood. And we'll get some cyanoacrylate kicker in there. Yeah, excellent. Excellent, yes. Now, got to get this wedge in there. So, how am I going to do this? I think I'm going to do it. Oh, you got to see that. Okay. I think I'm going to do it like this with some needle nose pliers and a little thwacker. Okay, so here we go. Oh. Hang on. Gotta go find the tiny little thing. Ah, found it. Here we go. Okay, so now it's started. Yes! All right. Let's file that clean. Let me get a file. Fascinating development here. I was just doing a little bit of a final thing and I dropped the hammer and I did that. Classic. Classic. Okay, so I have two options. I can remake the handle or I can cyanoacrylate the handle and then wrap some wire all the way down it. I think that's the second thing is what I'm going to try to do. I'm always interested in rescuing a build rather than starting it from scratch if I can. If I can't, however, then I can't. But let's see if I can. Let's see if I did it. I also gave it a finish of cyanoacrylate. This is a woodworker's trick. It's a very hard, fast finish. Perhaps you shouldn't use zip kicker for it, but I'm going to give it a shot. Again, I am Mr. Impatience. Ooh, all right. All right, so there we have it. That was a quick fix. Feels, look, oh, you know what? But you know, if I wrap something there, it's not gonna make it any stronger. So what this is now is this is a little thwacker. This is a little thwacker for just placing stuff, you know, just a little bit of a pink. Yeah, just a little pink and maybe a little pink. Yeah, it's for like setting your optical center or doing some layout. I may eventually have to remake the handle of this. I really like the shape of the head, that barrel shape. I think it's really lovely. It feels good in my hand. Oh, hey, let's try it out in the mill. All right, here's how this goes. You would take a pair of parallels, pop them in your vise. A piece of metal you want to operate on sits on those parallels, and you could just close the vise, but what you do is you get it like just ever so. There we go. That right there, that's a nice little thwacker. I'm very pleased. So there you have it. A little thwacker, an easy build, almost no matter what kind of tools you have access to. It can be as fancy or as simple as you want to get. You might want to make a slightly thicker handle than I did because I messed up a little bit, but with a dark walnut finish on some koa wood and a cyanoacrylate acrylic coating, little wedge in the end there. This is going to live with the mill for years. Thanks so much for joining me in this one-day build. This is Adam Savage for Tested. I am signing out. Boop.